No time for a long-winded cold open because we have a guest today. Toby Petersen, the new head coach of the Texas Stars, joins us right now here on DLLS.
Get ready, boys.
This is the DLLS Stars podcast on Tuesday, July the 22nd. As we welcome everybody here into the podcast studio, I'm Owen Newkirk, joined today by Sean Shapiro and Craig Ludwig from their two off-season residences. Of course, for Sean, it's also his on-season residence. But look who is here. We have a special guest, the man of the hour, the newest head coach of the Texas Stars. Let that sink in. Toby Petersen joining us live from his soon-to-be vacated home in Colorado, I think. We'll see how quickly that goes. Toby, thank you very much for joining us today. I'm actually going to let Sean ask the first question. So, Sean, have at it.
Yeah, first off, Toby, thanks for coming on with us. I think you and I ran into each other at a press box in Colorado 6 or 7 months ago, mid-season, I think, at one point. So good to see you here. And just to kind of start off with the Texas job, what stood out? I just wanted to kind of start there of why the Texas job interested you to kind of go after it. It's something where you had coached in the AHL before, you were working in skill development with the Avalanche. You obviously have been, when you talked tonight before, there was no eager interest to leave Colorado from last time I talked. So why was this the Texas job the right thing for you to go after for yourself in the first place?
Yeah, I like you said, I've spent 6 years, building up prospects in other organizations with Buffalo and Columbus in the past. And obviously being with Colorado the last few years, you get a pretty good feel for where organizations are at. And Dallas does one thing, I mean, they do a lot of things very well, but one thing they do incredibly well is they develop talent. This is one of the most coveted jobs as a result of that. They win hockey games because they're so good at developing. And so that's what stood out to me as like a big time attraction for this opportunity.
Go ahead, lads.
Hey, Petey, you mentioned developing talent. I've always had, I think we can go back to last year with this organization that you're now part of. The team in the minors is playing their system however they want to play. My question or my comment, my thought, my wish is that why don't more teams, and I don't, maybe you will this year, maybe it changes. Why don't you guys play a little bit more like the parent team does, right? And so that when a player gets called up, you can kind of plug them out, plug them in. There was times last year when, whether it was Petro or whoever came up, it seemed like it took a little bit of time to adjust to what DeBoer was doing. So do you still have, is there any of that dialogue that goes back and forth? We'd like you to kind of develop or play the way that we do, or are you on your own to play whatever kind of style you like with your players?
I think it's a bit of a hybrid, but I do think that there will be a lot of things will be streamlined in the organization is my feeling. These discussions still need to take place. Obviously, we'll sit down with Coach Gulletson and his staff and make sure our staff, make sure we're all on the same page. But you're absolutely correct in that, when guys get called up, especially their first call up, second call up, there's a lot on their plate. There's a lot going through their minds. And you want guys to be able to go out there and just perform and not have to overthink. So I think there's some merit to what you're saying, especially, forecheck, D-zone coverage, those types of things, the things that stand out constantly in games. You want to make sure that, you're all on the same page and they have experience running what Dallas is running so that when they get up there, they can just perform. They can just go out there and just play and do a little bit less thinking and just kind of read and react as they go along. The one exception obviously is going to be, you do have to play to your team's strengths and weaknesses a little bit. So power play, penalty kill, you're going to, that's where, I get the feeling, especially power play, you've got to play to the strengths and weaknesses of your team.
Toby, you did an interview with Stephen Meserve, who does a great job covering the Texas Stars for 100 Degree Hockey. And it was wonderful to read, but I really loved some of your comments, obviously. Part of it was you talked about Willie, our old head coach back in 2012 through 2014 with the Texas Stars, Willie Desjardins, and about building up all year long. You talked about it, and I think you combined that with what Jared Bednar did with you guys in Lake Erie when you were in your second year as an assistant coach in the AHL, and you won 2 Calder Cups because of it. Why is it so important to develop the habits that you've had, whether as a player when you were in the NHL, playing in the AHL, or as a coach throughout the year, and not try to flip a switch when the playoffs start?
I think it's hard to flip that switch. Teams that try to do it usually struggle. Like if you go through the regular season, you're winning a lot of games, but you're cheating the play a little bit.
Lutz is already applauding.
Yeah, it's hard to flip the switch. So you might have a high scoring, a high powered offensive attack that allows you to win games. You might have just a killer power play that's causing you to win more games than maybe you should. But it's hard to flip that switch. So I think it's important that I don't expect a rookie to come in and on day one and have playoff habits immediately. But that's what our job is as coaches. Our support staff in Austin and in Cedar Park. Our job is to make sure these guys understand what playoff hockey players look like. Because really, if you got a playoff hockey player, that's a winning hockey player. That's what you're looking to. Those are the habits you're trying to develop immediately. So I think it's important, and something Willie did a good job of, and Coach Bednar did a great job of, is they recognize it immediately and they kind of nip it in the bud before it becomes an issue. So, if a player is turning away from a clearly open contact opportunity, you just wait for him to get back to the bench and just remind him we finished that hit so that we're winning the race back up the ice, whatever it is. Like there's a million opportunities or a million different circumstances where that shows, but we want to build playoff hockey players, and it starts from day one.
With the AHL job, and it's something that I'm sure your view on this and figuring out this, you went from playing with a Texas team that won a championship and playing with some good AHL teams to coaching with some teams that have won. Obviously, we know there's the wall on the line in the Texas locker room that says we win here, right? Because we know there's some AHL teams where there is not as much of an emphasis on winning games. As you've kind of formed your view of how the AHL is run and how you're going to do your job, what is the balance of development and winning and finding and hitting that kind of perfect gray area? Because it's not simple black and white like it is coaching at other levels.
That's a great question. It's one of the hardest ones to answer, but for me, it's development first. Winning will come. Like my favorite piece of literature, favorite book I've read is Bill Walsh's "The Score Will Take Care of Itself." And he's all about the process. And it ends up, obviously he won a few games, it's safe to say, won some Super Bowls, built a dynasty in San Francisco with his process, which was simply doing the right things every day. And not just on the ice, but out of the, in the locker room, away from your house. He was trying to build perfection, knowing he wasn't always going to land on perfection, but he was going to be more prepared and have the guys playing the right way more often than their opponents, which is going to lead to a big advantage. So for me, it's development. Even the old guys, like something I was told as an older player, one of my exit meetings was, Toby, you don't make a lot of big epic mistakes. So you kind of slip through the cracks a little bit, because we had other guys we were always worried about. We didn't do enough individual meetings with you. It's not that they were like, it's not that you play bad. It's like, I just feel like there's little meat left on the bone is kind of what they're getting at. So for me as a coach, like I remember that. And I want to make sure that the older players on the team, the Curtis McKenzies or whoever ends up being there as the older players, they're getting the same level of attention for their habits as the brand new player that's coming into the organization for the first time or coming into the league for the first time.
PD, Owen mentioned Gully, you mentioned Willie. You've also had Dave Tippett, you had Crawford. Is of all those guys and people that you've been under or worked with, is there anybody that you kind of pattern yourself after? Because it used to be a little bit more hard ass back in the day, or you just kind of go about it and say, I'm my own guy and here's what I'm doing.
That's a great question, Luddy. The guys that kind of popped to mind, you take a little bit from each one of them. I was only with Tip for a little bit, but obviously like he had a winning pedigree. He knew how to win hockey games. He knew how to get
he's from North Dakota, Petey. It's a UND guy. So
that helps. Yeah, that obviously helps. But I learned a lot from Tip. I learned a lot from all of them. And they'll be the first to admit it's not always going to be good. It's sometimes you learn from the mistakes. But Willie was a big one as far as like building the team, building the culture. He from like immediately when he walked in, before he even took the job, I'd been with him when he was the associate in Dallas, and he had kind of come to me and said, "Hey, I'm thinking of going to Austin. Sounds like you might be on your way." So we kind of he laid out his plan early on in the process and followed through with it right away with the leadership. So, he's a big one for the team building. Jared Bednar, same thing. Like, there's just, the thing I take from him is there's no gimmicks. Like, you have to outwork, outperform, and out execute your opponents. And obviously it helps to have a lot of talent, to do that. But he's won a lot of hockey games at every level. And it's just his focus on details and paying attention to the flow of the game and making sure that, they're dictating the play more than the other team is able to dictate to them. So, those would probably be, off the top of my head, my two biggest influences. But I'm talking like going back to Pee-wees, Bantams. Like, I've had coaches that have just done an incredible job. Bloomington Jefferson, I got to give a shout out to them. We won a lot of hockey games in Bloomington back in the day, and it was with, it starts with really good coaching, teaching discipline from an early age, and that carried through and provided a lot of great college and NHL players.
So Sean sent me a link this morning, and I believe it was a video of you winning your third straight Minnesota high school hockey championship with Jefferson. And I believe that you took the final face-off of that video where you guys got to celebrate. And it's insane because we all know what Minnesota high school hockey is like. But then you sit there, and it was, it was in the mid-'90s or early to mid-'90s, and you're looking at that going, this NHL building is shaking to the rafters for a high school hockey game, which is just, I imagine that playing in something like that is really, really unique.
It is. I mean, we were very fortunate. I was on the final of the three teams. My brother was on all three, so him and a couple of his buddies were on all three of those teams. But yeah, won 3 straight. His middle year, the year before I got there, they went undefeated, which doesn't seem like much, but it's pretty tough competition around there. But like I said, I just feel fortunate that I was able to have that opportunity to play at, then it was the Civic Center, now it's at XL or Grand Casino, whatever it's going to be called soon. But you just feel fortunate that at such a young age, I was 14 years old and the place was sold out and the crowd was roaring and everyone was cheering against us. So pretty early on, you get to learn how to play in a pretty hostile environment. You learn a lot as a young kid doing that. But it's a great setup. It's the only thing that we equate to, and it's probably on a smaller scale, but it really is Texas high school football. Like, that's the closest I can get to finding a comparable, sport around the country. It's Minnesota high school hockey is huge, and it's held strong despite all the changes going on in, around the rest of the leagues with everything going on. They still maintain a strong base and great viewership and everything. And the state tournament is, it's the crown jewel of their season.
Hey, Sean, before you jump in real quick, I just have to ask a Minnesota Twin Cities native. For people that don't know, the naming rights is changing for the Minnesota Wild building. It's no longer XL Energy Center. Actually, I think technically not till September. But everybody up there calls it the X, right? So how long is it going to take to stop calling it the X?
This is a question for me?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, you're the Minnesota native.
I think, I was home in Minnesota last week. Sorry, I misunderstood the beginning. I was in Minnesota last week, and already I was hearing people coming up with their ideas. There's tons of opportunity to make a new name, to shorten it. Obviously, the G or the big G, whatever. Like, there's a million opportunities to play with that, the new naming or the new name that's going to accompany the arena, but it won't take long is what I'm saying.
All right, Sean, go ahead.
And then, so kind of connecting us back to Texas here, you compared Minnesota high school hockey to Texas football. So let's to the job you're stepping into right now. Obviously, you're stepping into a role with two guys who on your staff that really well, that you played with, you won a championship with. What's the conversation been like with Max and Travis, and kind of getting ready to work with them now in a coach's room after having played together before and you guys past history?
I mean, for myself, it's a lot of excitement. I know those guys really well. We've kept in touch over the years. I know what they're, I know the type of players they are. I know the type of character they are or they have. So that's obviously huge. I don't have to worry about them putting in the work. And obviously the job they've done as a team and the job that Texas Stars have done over the last several years speaks for itself. So these guys are producing winners. They're producing NHL caliber talent. And, a little bit of it is just get in there, get to know these guys in the process, maybe tweak a couple things. Going back to Luddy's question there, like the influence from the coaches, like it is important though that we kind of create our own path. The three of us kind of stick to what we do best and make sure that we're all, sticking to what we do best. not trying to be something we're not, because we all know players can sniff that out pretty quick. You got to be genuine. And I think if we do that with the range of skills the three of us have, and really the all five of the coaching staff there, like if we just stick to our skills, I think we're going to produce a lot of exciting games and a lot of wins.
All right, we have to take a quick ad break. Up next, more with new head coach Toby Petersen here on the DLS Stars podcast.
Started by two college friends, Saturday Neon makes officially licensed collegiate logo neon signs perfect for your home, office, dorm room, fan cave, or bar. Check out the Essentials collection featuring almost 50 of the biggest schools across the country and counting for only $75. See their Texas A&M, Texas Tech, Oklahoma, and Oklahoma State signs. Unlike traditional neons, these LED signs won't break or shatter, but still give you that classic uniform glow. The LEDs last up to 100,000 hours, so you'll be enjoying your sign for years to come. Low voltage and super easy to install using the provided hardware or with the 3M command strips. Head over to SaturdayNeon.com and use code DLLS for 10% off your favorite sign.
All right, let's talk about Monarch Money. Usually that's one that Sam gets to do, but Sam's still not here. Should be. Again, we never know. Should be here tomorrow. Let's talk about Monarch Money. Finances can be messy and confusing, and of course, Monarch Money can help you because it acts as your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control so you can stop earning and start growing. It's more than just your average budgeting app. Monarch Money is a complete financial command center for your accounts, investments, goals, etc. One of the great things I like to do is to try to use it to budget out vacation time because we all need a break from this place. We all can't be like Luds and go to Wisconsin for 3 months. So we have to do what you can. Start managing your finances to build the life you want. Without a clear picture, of course, financial dreams can feel out of reach. Monarch makes managing money simple, even for busy lives. It is a finance tool people actually love. More than 1 million households using it, and Wall Street Journal's best budgeting app of 2025. Get control of your overall finances with Monarch Money. Use code DLS at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code DLLS. All right, we're going to bring Toby back into the frame. And Luds, you are up. Take it away.
Well, first, as far as I'm concerned, once it's the X or your X, it's always the X or your X, if you know what I mean. Petey, again, you're a younger cat now, but can you talk a little bit about this generation, of player? And it's a little bit different how you handle these guys, and is there, because I find with the NHL guys, we're college guys, and I think they had to babysit us, probably me more than you, had to babysit us a little bit more because you have so much time off, and you got guys down there, you guys are playing 3 games in a week, and what are they doing on the other 4 days of the week? They should be training, but any things that stand out for you as far as this generation of a player?
I think there are things that have changed. I mean, I was there towards the tail end of the clutch and grab era. So, not that has anything to do with the mentality, but the makeup. But it was a tough NHL when you were playing, and it's still tough. I mean, there's still big hits. There's still different, variables that you would say, well, that it takes a tough player to get through it. But it's it's slightly different game in a lot of ways. But the players themselves, I think, are pretty similar in that they want communication. They want to get better. They want you to be open with them, honesty, whatever. So all that hasn't changed. And I think it's the one thing that, you hear and you kind of see a little bit is players are really in tune with themselves and the way they're playing. And I don't want to say their feelings, but just kind of being in touch with where they're at mentally at all times. And you have to kind of nurture that through good communication and relationships. And I think that, again, like I said, starting from day one with the habits, the communication has to begin right away. Like, the day I get into training camp, the day I get around the guys in front of the players, there has to be a good, a lot of good communication, getting to know them, not just on the ice, but getting to know them personally, getting to know their families, their whole situation, their history. It's only going to come back, it's only going to help them in the long run if I have a better understanding of who I'm dealing with. It's
such an interesting full circle moment. I think you and I were texting that maybe a week ago when I was still in New York, but you have a captain or you're assuming the captaincy for a guy who was a rookie your last year of professional playing that you won the cup with, and Curtis McKenzie. You have an NHL captain who you played with when you were a player with Dallas last, and that's Jamie Benn. And of course, you played under Glenn Gulletson as a player, and now you're going to be coaching and connecting between the AHL and NHL clubs. It just seems like there's this inevitable pull for you back with the Stars organization with all the ties. Sean mentioned Travis and Max and the coaching connections there. And of course, Scott White, still the general manager of the AHL club, as well as the assistant GM with Dallas. And I guess it's sort of a full circle question, Toby, because the last time I saw you in Cedar Park, again, admittedly, was a long time ago for both of us, about 11 years ago, your kids were older than mine, but not by that much. And mine are now pushing 6 feet plus. And I imagine yours have grown up a lot since that time too.
Yep, they've grown up a lot. My oldest is off to college.
Man.
Yeah, I know. He was born in Des Moines when I was playing for the Iowa Stars. So it's been a long time. I've been with the Stars for quite a while going back. But yeah, he's off to Iowa State this coming year. So it's a lot going on in the Petersen household. Like you mentioned, you alluded to earlier, listing the house, getting out of Denver, finding a place in Austin, North Austin area, and then sending one of our kids off to college. Not to mention my daughter is, going into 8th grade. My other son's going into his junior year. Not an easy time to pick up and leave with their social lives and all that. So there's a lot of change in our family, but that's the gig. We knew it when we signed up. Lexi knew it when she married me, that there's a lot of traveling, picking up and leaving very quickly. And it creates a lot of adventure. We always try to look at the silver lining and talk about how well adjusted the kids should be down the road. But in the moment, it's really tough on the family, the kids especially, to pick up and leave right now.
I know how much my wife is going to have a emotional wreck of a hard time when our oldest, who's about to be a sophomore in high school, goes out of the house and goes off to college. How's Lexi doing, and are you doing okay with it too?
She's doing great. She is. I mean, like you said, we were in Austin. We loved it there. We had a great couple of years there. Obviously loved Dlls as well. But she knows that there's some tumultuous times ahead when we don't even know yet who's going to take Bjorn up the road to Ames, Iowa. But whoever does, hopefully we both can. But if it's her, it's going to be a tough drive back. So we're aware that there's some tumultuous times ahead, some lonely days. But thank God for phones and video conferencing and all that kind of stuff, FaceTime and whatever, because we'll have to use that to keep in touch. We're not unique. We know that. Every parent goes through it. At some point, you got to let the kids spread their wings and get out of the nest.
I feel bad being the one to pivot us back to hockey questions, Owen, but where so we talked. How is your experience working with Colorado and from my understanding, you were doing a lot with some return to play guys. So you worked with Cale when he was working his way back from injury. You worked with Gabe a little bit. From your experience working with some of those NHL superstars and those habits, what are some of the things you might take from there that now you bring to an AHL role when you try to work with some of younger guys who are trying to get to those spots?
Yeah, so I mean, the return to play is a little different because sometimes I'm telling them, and they're we have the trainers telling them to pump the brakes a little bit. One you guys are familiar with was Val. Anytime he was hurt or coming back from whatever he was coming back from, he was always just wanted to go. He only knows one speed, and we had to kind of pump the brakes. But aside from like the return to play stuff, the thing that I've gained from watching those guys day in and day out is just, one, it's the amount of preparation that they put into not just the games, but the practices as well. I mean, they're in the weight room, or they get there early. They're making sure they got all the cobwebs out and they're ready to perform as soon as the first drill or the whistle blows for the first drill. They're ready to go. Obviously, Nathan McKinnon is well known for the amount of work he puts in on the details. You watch him in some of the videos when he's skating with Sidney Crosby in the summer, and they are working on picking up pucks off the wall, saucing it with pace, getting it to land flat. Things that a lot of players, either don't have the time or don't have the patience to work on. That's what they're working on, and obviously it helps to be able to skate like those guys. So if I was, when I talk to any young group of players, whether it's U12, U10, whatever, I'm always stressing the skating. I think every hockey mind would say the same thing. It's not like if you can't skate well, you can't play. But when you look at the NHL, you got to be able to skate well to keep up, to make an impact. So with any young player and any player that's going to come through our doors or come through our gates, there's going to be a heavy focus on skating and agility and balance and, getting there quick and all that kind of stuff. So it's a free pass, not a free pass, but it's a ticket that's going to help you get to the NHL. Obviously, you got to be able to do a lot of other things. You got to be able to think the game and finish hits and produce and all that stuff, win faceoffs, kill penalties. There's a million other variables, but it starts with skating.
This is a question for the panel. Did anybody see the video that came out? Well, I saw it last night of Michkov talking about playing in Russia versus playing in the NHL. Pete, did you happen to see it?
I haven't seen it yet. No.
Well, I don't even know when it was, but I'm just wondering how you he obviously had a European jersey on, and he was on practice. But what he was talking about is how when he's in Russia, you have the puck and you carry the puck into the zone and you gain the line and you get to the top of the circle and you make passes and you do all this stuff. In the NHL, they want me to get to the red line, and then he kind of shows how they want me to dump it in, and then I got to go and get it, and then I got to get hit or I got to make a hit. I'm just curious, how does that translate with, and again, because it's a little different game, but you have players that a little struggle sometimes getting them to play the way that you probably need to play at a different level. How do you approach something like that?
That's a great question, Luddy. There's a lot of layers to this one, I think. You don't want to take the creativity away from them completely. Obviously, if you've got a player that's capable of getting a controlled entry, you want to nurture that and foster that. But at the same time, in the back of your mind, you're just kind of waiting for that first bad decision where they try to make something out of nothing, and then you're ready. You're ready to, give them some feedback. Of course, you want to give them positive feedback too. So when they are able to get the controlled entry and create a 3-on-2 out of, just using their speed and using their patience with the puck, whatever it is, you want to make sure they know that was a great play. We want to keep doing that, keep working on it. But you do have to keep an eye on the flip side, which is the costly blue line turnovers. And being in the AHL, you get a lot of European players that come over, and the players from all over, different places that are used to playing a different style of hockey. And there's definitely a learning period. Some guys get it quicker than others. You find some of the older college players seem to adjust really quickly. A guy like I had Colin Blackwell there in Rochester for a bit, and he had pro habits immediately coming out of Harvard like he did. I believe he was a little bit older. So he was ready to play the AHL game immediately. There wasn't much of an adjustment period for him. So that's just one example. But a lot of these kids, the guys, it takes a while because you have to break some habits. And sometimes when they're a little bit older and they're 19, 20, 21 years old, it's hard to break some habits that they've had since they were 5 or 6. So, but you just got to stress the importance of, the why. They want to understand why we're preaching to play a certain way. And it doesn't take long. Sit down, watch an NHL game, and just kind of go through the flow of the game. And you see it time and time again, the chip and retrieve, chipping to speed, self chips, put it behind the D, make the D turn. The advantage to doing that is huge, and not getting sawed off at the blue line and causing the other team with their quick transition go the other way. So players want to know why. They want to understand the game. They want to learn from it. So you just got to make sure you're staying on it, being consistent, and then preaching the why we're doing this the way we are.
How do you handle it at the American League level when they don't get it? I mean, is it just continue to let them learn on their own and make the mistakes, or does it come to a point where it's like, dude, can you take them out of a game? Do you sit them down? What's your approach to that?
Yep, there'd be a collaborative approach, I think, and with each player, it's going to be a little different. I mean, some players might have a little more upside. You have to have a little more patience, not with the upside, but just a little more patience because they are capable of doing things. An example that I love to talk about is Sonny Milano when he was with us there in the Columbus organization. Certainly, it would be frustrating at times when he was trying to make something out of nothing, but then he'd do a spinorama backhand goal from the goal line that would go over the goalie's shoulder, and you just shake your head and you're like, that just changed the game in our favor. Out of nothing, he made just an unbelievable play. So, it's just reminding him, great play, but let's just make sure we're hitting the net on that and not creating a 2-on-1 out of it. So I think with every player, there's just a different way you have to communicate with them. But there are certain things that we call non-negotiables. It's obviously a big term in hockey, but there are certain things that no matter who you are, there are non-negotiables that you have to abide by. If it's an effort play, we're not putting up with that. it won't be long. Like, you give them a warning. Obviously, you don't just pull them out of the lineup first time something happens. You let them know what the issue is. You ask for improvement. And then if need be, you might have to monitor their ice time. Like, it's one of the few things coaches have in their toolbox that we can actually control is their playing time and their availability to dress.
Boy, I could ask you, this is why we need more time, but we don't have much left. So before we go, aside from I don't even know if you still remember playing What Would Dougie Do with Travis and Max and some of those guys. I always thought that was a hilarious game. In that vein, how do you transition yourself personally from the assistant coach, which is, inevitably a little bit closer to the players, to now being the head coach where you kind of have to pull back from the players a little bit? Or is there a different way to do it?
I think you're right in what you're saying. I think you do have to, because the final call goes with the head coach. So, but it's the same thing though, where you have to communicate with them and you talk to them and make sure that they have an understanding of why. I was part of it there at the end of the end of my career there was Max Fortunas, Travis, who wasn't coming out because he was league MVP. Max was the captain. So Francis Wache, myself, and there's one other guy. We were all kind of in a rotation. It might have been Chris Mueller. We were all kind of in a rotation of sitting out because we had too many vets. And those aren't easy decisions for head coaches to make. And but we all bought into what we were trying to do. And, I think that it's important that everyone buys into the direction you're trying to lead the team. And then some of those things become easier where you have to make those tough decisions and tough calls. That said, I am who I am, and I like to think I'm pretty outgoing. I like to talk. I like to listen. So just because, I've got to distance myself slightly in certain ways doesn't mean that I'm going to stop communicating, just shell up and spend all my time in the office. I'm a big advocate of the coaching staff and the trainers, being a part of the social aspect of the locker room, getting out and talking to guys, whether it's at a meal or, on the road, on the bus. Like, don't be afraid to sit down and chat with them just for the heck of it. Davey Allison, back in the day when he was the coach in Iowa, he was Dallas's AHL coach. He'd at one at a time. He'd be like, Matt Green, you're riding with me today over to the practice rink. And you didn't really have a choice. You're like, okay, coach. And then you'd have 20 minutes to talk to him and 20 minutes on the way back to talk to him. And I do think that what he was doing was right. It's just trying to open up the lines of communication and see where guys are at. And, I think that's a really important aspect.
Okay, we're out of time. But before we go, Sean has a little surprise for you, Toby.
Yeah. So, Toby, you probably have seen this before. So I was cleaning the office out the other day while we were prepping for this, and I found my Toby Petersen issue Texas Stars bobblehead. And so I need the quick how accurate it was now that you're seeing it. And then I also found my Max Fortunas and Travis Morin ones too. So we've got the entire coaching staff bobblehead style now here. So
nice.
Figured
I'm sure you have that's a handsome. I was going to say, it's a handsome fellow in your hands. Yeah, they're floating around. My buddies have them. They still, once in a while, I get the random picture from them. Look what I found. But proportions are pretty accurate. Small.
I was going to say that's what I was going to say. The size is right.
Fairly big head, it's not far off.
Well, Toby, we'd love to have you on again. I know you've got a lot going on, trying to get the house taken care of, moving, kids set up. And, oh, by the way, you've got a prospect tournament to coach coming up in September, and then NHL camp, AHL camp, a lot going on. So hopefully we can catch up. It'll be different than just you and me in the press box when the Stars and Avalanche inevitably play in the playoffs, which are always fun too. But I can't tell you thank you enough. It's really fun to have you on. We're really excited for you to have this coaching opportunity and expecting big things. Think it's going to be a great fit. So, again, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Good luck,
Thanks,
Petey.
guys. I appreciate your time. Thank you, Lottie. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Toby.
All right, there he goes, Toby Petersen. Up next, the show continues here on the DLS Stars podcast.
But before that happens, we're going to talk about Empire Today. And so just like your favorite team needs a home ice advantage, your home team needs a home floor advantage, and Empire Today can help you get it. Empire Today has flooring experts, dedicated flooring professionals who focus on flooring every single day. You've all been to those big box stores. You wander endless aisles, and somehow you're hauling all the materials home, looking for an installer, and coordinating everything yourself. Those big box stores might have a flooring department, but the person helping you with flooring may have been doing sinks yesterday and could be stocking light bulbs tomorrow. It's chaos all over the place. So Empire Today lives and breathes flooring, and they will be with you every step of the way. It's a whole different ballgame. Their flooring experts bring the showroom right to your home. You get to pick the right flooring and right colors for your space and see how it looks with your furniture in your house. Just like the floors, I think, in the other room than Owen is right now, it fits really well with the space because of Empire Today. So to schedule your free in-home estimate today, because some things are just better at home, DLLS listeners can receive a $350 discount when using the promo code DLLS. Yes, you heard right, a $350 discount with code DLLS. Restrictions apply. Visit EmpireToday/DLLS for full details.
Thanks, Sean. Let's talk about Shady Rays. You know that moment, the one where you realize you're moving from Colorado to Dallas or to Colorado to Cedar Park, and you realize you left your favorite sunglasses with the Packers, or maybe the people coming in to stage your house like Toby was going to do today to have the realtor photos. Maybe they took them by accident, or maybe they did it on purpose. Well, either way, we've all been there. We've lost some great sunglasses, but with Shady Rays, it's a game changer because these are really great sunglasses. Good looking, polarized, durable, and not stupidly expensive. But if you lose them, they will replace them even on day one. Or if you break them, no questions asked, no guilt trip, just replacements. So now you can actually wear your sunglasses without fear on hikes, at concerts, in the boat, wherever. They always have your back. Go to shadyrays.com. Use the code DLLS35 for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself. The shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. All right. Before we get into some other stuff, I just wanted to ask you two your reactions, especially Luds, because I know you know Toby a little bit from when he was with Dallas, but I don't know when the last time you crossed paths with him. But when you hear what Toby's philosophies are, his coaching styles, the things that he shared with us, what were your impressions?
I think it's a guy that probably knew that he wanted to be a coach before he finished playing. You know what I mean? Like, I always have said this. I said that some of the best players in the game don't turn out to being good coaches because they don't understand the time, the hours, every day. They're just used to coming to the rink for an hour and a half, go through a light practice, and then just be the best player on the ice every night. So I think the bottom six, the bottom three or two or three defensemen in the league have to put in so much more work. They end up being coaches because they're not afraid of the time that you have to put in. And it's obvious that just from his answers, that he's got quick answers to all of them. He already knows where he's going. He knows what he's looking for. He just seems to have the personality. We didn't even bring up Jordy being a guy down there, but he just seems to have the personality of a head guy that is able to deal with those difficult times for different, players, to be able to talk them through situations. And that's why I was curious about how he was going to answer the Michkov thing, because we have to do it with our 18-year-old kids, and sometimes I don't have the patience for them, because if they don't get it after the first time or the second time, I don't get it. I don't understand why you can't buy in, but you have to. A lot of times players come and you have to they've been programmed in a way that really isn't effective for them. And so you have to deprogram them, then you have to reprogram them. And you have to be a patient person to be able to go through that process. And at the end of the day, the hardest thing for me at that level would be not wanting to or making sure you win every night. It's different. You're there to develop first, and you've got to get those guys ready. And I was going to add, I don't know, you guys would know. I mean, you've both been there one way or another. Do those players in games have iPads on the bench like they do here in the NHL? Are they all got the iPads?
It is. There is not the prevalence of them. There is not the 1-to-1 ratio. It's not 1-to-1 on an NHL bench, but it's like in the NHL bench, there's half a dozen and anyone can grab one. They are available, but it's typically maybe 1 or 2 on the bench. And so it's not like something where it's not a setup where, like in Dallas, where Jason Robertson goes to the bench and the iPad's waiting for him. No. It's between the technology and the video work and where it is right now. It's just it's not to that extent. So it is a little bit more of it's less plugged in, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, I mean, and that's fine. And I know it's a new day, and I just think back on some of the videos that we made here, and how many times have we shown changes, right? And
yep.
And it's, again, I hate it. You're not supposed to change when you're coming back to your own end. You're supposed to change on the way up. But regardless, it's more about the guys that are getting out on out onto the ice late too. Are they, staring at the iPad and still going over their plays? But again, I know it's a different time. I get it for looking at all that kind of stuff. But half the times, as a coach, I don't know how you could take it. Like, I'm like, are you watching what's going on out here? Are you seeing this? Are you seeing that? But that's the way the game is.
Lutz, in that vein, though, I'm surprised that more guys don't take a puck to the face because they're looking down at an iPad and it gets shot into the bench, right? Like,
yeah, but that's the only time their visors actually protect them is when their head is down. I mean, because they wear them up here anyways. So,
Sean, you've known Toby for a long time. You were covering Texas Stars back when I was working for them. So we're talking about like 13 years ago now plus. So it gets farther and farther away. But like, he's the same guy, right? He's more experienced. He's got coaching for both AHL and NHL on his resume, but he's the same intelligent, well thought out, as Lud said, well-spoken guy who always had a good head on his shoulders, even when he was at the back end of his playing career with us.
Yeah, for me, there's two takeaways. Just from more recent takeaways, and just kind of talking to Toby via text separately when we had him on the show here, and talking to some people in Colorado who worked with him as well. One of the things that he talked about being a head coach and how you're in charge, but the way he really improved as a one-on-one connector. And not that he was bad at it, but just one of the things that I talked to some people in Colorado, they said one of the things, just how he worked as a skills coach, working with and finding what each guy needed to work on. He was really good at applying that in a one-on-one setting as well. And you take that with his past assistant coaching experience in the AHL and working with two guys he knows well in Max and Travis. I think it's going to work out. It's going to work out well for, at the end of the day, as Lud said, one of the toughest jobs, coaching in the AHL is the toughest job in hockey, in my view, because it is the only job where your win-loss record, what everyone outside of the organization and everyone like us, will judge you by, is not what your boss is judging you by. It is the most important game each night is the game featuring the Dallas Stars, not the Texas Stars. Now Jim Nill would like the Texas Stars to win because it would help his long-term vision and individual players' progress, but Toby Petersen's job is not to win hockey games. At the end of the day, his job is to help the Dallas Stars solve problems so that they can win more hockey games. And I think that's something that Toby understands really well. And I also think it's something that just from his experience and being around Colorado and working with some of those other top players too, it's a really good combination of things that he can all draw on. So say you're working with a defenseman, right? And so you're working with a defenseman and you're saying, hey, we're working on our skating here, or we're working on this or whatever. When you can easily pull, hey, we worked on this with Kale McCarr on this, or I know that they're doing this. Like, I think a lot of those real life examples as a coach, and Luds, maybe you can tell me what your thoughts are on this. When a coach comes to you, can give you proof of how they've worked with elite players before, or they can give you an example of how you can get to the next level, that tends to click for the player a little bit more. It's not just here's why we're doing this, but here's the potential reward if you do this the right way. And from everything I've heard about Toby and based on our conversations, it seems that he gets that. And I think that's why that's one of the reasons that he's going to have success in Texas, is he's going to help players find that next 1%, 2% of their game, stealing Glenn Golitson's terminology on physicality, but stealing the next 1%, 2% of their game, where they either become more of an NHL option or becoming a better AHL player. Because that's the other thing. And I thought it was great, his comment about how, you know what, when I was playing and a veteran player, they didn't spend enough time with me. Not on purpose, just like I thought that was a really interesting feedback of, it's not just his job is to make Curtis McKenzie 4% better, right? Or whatever. Not because Curtis McKenzie will ever play a game for the Dallas Stars, but Curtis McKenzie being a better player, being a better captain, being whatever it is, that could be that little trickle-down effect that leads to this other prospect putting in more work or this other guy getting a better opportunity. I think that's a really important perspective here of his job is to help elevate everyone, no matter what the end goal is for that individual player.
Sean, I'd answer your question, but I'll get to you right after this.
Oh, he is on the money today.
Oh, look at that.
This being me talking about being a diehard. Boy, Luds, fantastic. Great segue. The QR code below Sean, scan that. Go to alldls.com. That will get you to the sign-up page to become a DLS diehard. We think we bring a pretty fantastic value, whether it's Sean or Sam writing about the Stars or Clarence asking Jerry Jones questions about the Cowboys. Just heard him on the radio earlier today asking questions for Brian Schottenheimer at Cowboys training camp out in Oxnard. You've got connections with, of course, all the guys that cover the Mavericks. I saw Mark Stein in the elevator today. Tim Cato doing the writing for DLS for covering Mavs. And, of course, Jeff Wilson with the Rangers with his showmates John Radigan. And Abby Jones was just at the Major League Baseball All-Star game. Got AHL on the brain. So you get great coverage blanketed across all the Dallas sports. Our producer Elijah also helps with the Dallas Wings podcast. That's a weekly. So we are really spreading out as far as we can as far as the professional side of sports in Dallas, and you want to be a part of it. What happens if you sign up to be a diehard? Well, in addition to all the great coverage, you can also get a free t-shirt from DLS of your choice for your first year of your annual subscription. That includes one of these Dallas collection shirts that's just been released. I believe it came out last week. And we've got sort of the classic Mavericks with the DLS with the hat. We've got the Dallas versus all y'all, which Luddy and I believe Sean both requested that. We've got the big text with the corn dogs, the strange one where it's all the mascots put together, the barbecue kind of sign, and of course my favorite, the Nolan and the Robin Ventura getting to know each other. Little how do you do? All of those things are great. Of course, I have the Wyatt Johnston 16-bit shirt on today. You can put on that one or any of the other Stars ones that we have. It's a great, oh, look at that. Finnish Mafia is right there. It's all great option. Finnish Mafia might be my favorite one yet. Go to alldls.com. Sign up to be a diehard today. All right, Luds, going back to Sean's question, he's absolutely right. And something I wanted to ask Toby, we just didn't have enough time for, is that while it is probably the trickiest to be an AHL head coach because you lose players constantly, getting called up, getting to the NHL club when they need it, so you don't know if you're going to have them there. You have veteran rules, so you can't just stack your team with with players with lots of experience because there's a limit. You have guys getting sent down to the ECHL. You've got tryout guys coming in all the time. The one other side, though, is, and I've heard multiple coaches say this, the players still need us in the AHL, right? They still need coaching. They still haven't made it yet, trying to get to the NHL. And to Sean's point about Toby dealing with Cale Makar, Nathan McKinnon, Gabe Landeskog with his big recovery, I would imagine that it is really beneficial to have worked with guys that in the NHL level maybe don't need you as much as a coach, but you can help things out, whereas in the AHL, they're really receptive because they're still trying to make it.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you're looking at guys that are, let's call it for what it is, they're bottom six players, right? And so they relate to how they relate to the players that they're trying to teach now because it's what they went through. They went through, as he said, you're in the lineup, you're out of the lineup, you had to work on little details of the game. And there's more of those players than there are of the superstar players there. And so I think you probably have more of a patience to be able to work with those guys. I'm always surprised because Toby was a skills coach, right? I mean, that's on his resume also. And I'm always trying to figure out, Toby played 400 games, 398 games. He's got 33 goals in his career. How do you get to be a skills coach? You know what I mean? And I'm wondering if the reason I say that is because if you're trying to teach somebody how to do something, are they going, well, you're trying to teach me how to shoot over here or pass over here, but dude, you only had 30 goals in 400 games. So, but that doesn't mean anything. And so I think it's about the respect and knowing how to handle all different types of players. And, I understand what he's saying too, because, and I have to do just the opposite with our guys. I don't get out there. I mean, you can show them how you're supposed to do this and that and positionally, all that kind of stuff. But I try to use players in the league. And I ask him, I said, do you watch NHL game? Yeah, I do. What team do you like? And then I try to give them a player that I think they could kind of be like. And it's not Cale Makar. Trust me, that's not who you are going to be. Because the problem is a lot of these kids nowadays, they watch highlights on YouTube. Well, as we know, the highlights on YouTube are not of the bottom six, and they're not of number 7, 6, 5 defensemen. So you have to kind of say, okay, but I want you to watch this guy. Are you going to the game tonight? Good. You're a number 4, number 5 defenseman. I want you to watch Esa Lindell play. There may be that one guy that I would say, watch Miro Heiskanen play. So I think you have to kind of pick out what would be a good role model for them if they're just watching. But I know it's always the same at our level, and I think what we're trying to do is at our level, we're trying to give them some details on how to play the game, not just individually, but more as a group, as a unit, where your responsibilities are 5-on-5, 5-on-4, things like that.
So it's funny. I texted Toby during the previous break just saying, thanks, I appreciate it. And he said, there's so many things I wanted to talk to him about. We just didn't have time for. And he said, maybe at the right time, we'll have to do part 2 because he was part of that team, Luds. And you mentioned only 33 goals. And I was just glancing back at his AHL. I mean, he had 31, 15, 14, 26, 21 goals in AHL. I know there's a difference between AHL and NHL, but it makes me think of guys like Vern Fiddler, right? Who offensively torched teams as a junior player or in the minors, and then said, I have to reinvent myself if I'm going to make it the NHL. And Toby, for his credit, for almost 400 NHL games, realized that he wasn't going to be put on the top line, but found ways to be valuable and trustworthy or trusted by the coaches. And I would think that those are the guys that make great coaches in the AHL and even the NHL, because to your point, right? The Wayne Gretzky famous experiment with the Coyotes didn't work real well because it's hard for a guy that could just do it to tell you how he did it. Whereas, guys that had to reinvent their game to make it at the top level really have to think other paths and avenues and strategies. And it feels like he has that in spades.
Yeah, I always thought, like, for those guys, it was about the hours that they actually have to put into work. They could come in there and just put their skates on and be good. And they weren't really interested in trying to teach players on their lines where you got to be. And if the guy can't do it more, at least in our area, it'd be more guys going in. We need somebody else to play over here on the right hand side because this guy ain't cutting it. I'm on this. And so, and again, like I said, the game was easy for him. I looked at, and that's why I said, I talked to you guys about that a long time ago when Rick Wilson came back and was giving us all options for optional skate, blah, blah, blah. And it was always the same guys it was a mandatory optional kind of thing, right? In other words, you got to be there. And I gave a little sigh and, I just said to him, I said, for those guys, the game is easy. For us, it's draining, and it'd be nice just once in a while to just hear the coach go, take the day off tomorrow. We never hear that. We really never heard it. And then Wilson was waiting for me when I got off the plane. He goes, Luds, take the day off tomorrow, which was nice of him. But I didn't. I came to the rink and, because I was going to come to the rink anyways, because I didn't want to, because he probably knew that. But anyway, I just think that those are the proper kind of guys to coach in the American League. They have the patience and they understand the details that they had to get right in order to get a shot. And then they had to improve on those little tiny details in order to stay in the lineup every night in the NHL. And sometimes it just didn't work. So they relate better to most of those players.
Hey, Sean, when you look at Toby's career, were you at all caught off guard that he made this jump? Because he clearly, as Lud said, was thinking about coaching before his playing career was over. And he started coaching in Springfield in the AHL literally the year after he retired, right away. Won a cup with Jared Bednar in Cleveland, and then was in Rochester for a few years, then Avalanche skills coach. It feels like he's a guy that this is an appropriate progression, but it surprised me because of the jump from NHL skills coach. Not because he doesn't have the pedigree, the experience, but I'm just thinking, what do you see going forward? Is if things go well for Toby Petersen, I have no reason to believe it won't. Is he a guy that could be a good NHL head coach?
I mean, well, let's see. Once again, you talk about winning the interview and winning the conversation with us, right? There's clearly saying the right things, and there's clearly having the right plan, but it's if you want to go back to one of the oldest pieces of literature in the world, the whole art of war, every plan is great until you meet an enemy. And or the football version of it, which was the football coach who said every plan's great till you get punched in the mouth. And so, if I will say this, there is a big step for someone to a head coaching job, and I think that is. I think we talked about we had the conversation about Ray Ferraro's comments the other day about respecting the game and respecting the path to it, and I think that is an important thing to do. Toby has never been a head coach, and so there are certain things where you can have a vision and you can plan it, and I think he's got all the tools, but there is, until you get into that first 3-3 and your team's sucking and you got to play he said, you know what, it is the development job. There's going to be that second period of a second game of a back-to-back, and there's going to be, if he was coaching in the NHL, you'd take the kid off the power play, right? There's going to be that frustrating moment. There's going to be the young goalie who the Stars have said, hey, this guy needs to play X amount of games. He's going to have a blow-up game, and you're going to have to coach through a 5-0 first period. Those are the things that you have, and I know Toby knows this, so it's not rocket science or it's not news to anyone, but those are the things that how you address that adversity in the moment, and how those will be the things that give me a better answer to that question, Owen. Like, if you're able to handle that well, if you're able to figure that stuff out and move on from there and be able to adjust and develop guys that way, then you could do it. I think he has all the tools, but I think it's unfair to judge a guy's long-term progression when his first head coaching game we'll see in October will be his first head coaching game. I think that's a jump that he will have to make. And obviously I'm rooting for him, and I think he's got the tools, but we will see, because he definitely won the conversation with us. He won the interview with Steven Meserve the other day. Those are all great things. Now what happens when another AHL coach goes down there and says, I'm going to go run. Now the gloves come off, and it's the only thing only your body of work can prove what you've done. So that's my cop out of an answer, but I can't give you an answer of what it means long-term until I see him coaching games as a head coach.
Hey, Luds, I want to share something that just came to me. I asked Toby about this probably 14 years ago. It was my first year in Texas, not my first AHL job, but I remember Toby coming down. He had been in Dallas since 2007. It was now 2012. So, he'd been in the NHL lifestyle for a number of years consecutively. And I remember we were getting on a flight at 6 a.m. and riding commercial, right? It wasn't a charter flight. And the AHL accommodations are fine, but it's not a 5-star hotel in a big city. And I remember asking him, was it hard for him to go back to this after the NHL travel lifestyle? He said, no. He goes, I always told myself, this isn't real. This isn't normal. I'm going to go with my wife and kids, and we're going to get on a plane like every other human being. We're not always going to have private planes and, chartering out of Signature Aviation and blah, blah, blah. And I, to me, love that he said, he told me that so long ago, but it was like, he's a guy that's really grounded and didn't let the bright lights of the NHL sort of get to him in that way.
Well, that's kind of what I mean. They understand. They've been through that whole thing, and they adapted to it, and it was fine. So I just think it's easier for those guys, and that's what I mean. Like, I don't ever see, or I don't even recall, one of the big time players that said, "Oh no, I'll go coach in the minor league." You know what I mean? Like, so, and I did that, but that was under a different circumstance kind of thing. But again, I was lucky. I never had to play a minor league game, and that's only because I was in the right spot at the right time, and they were looking for a certain kind of player. So I was lucky, but that's what I mean. I just think he's grounded, like you said, and his roots were there, and he still remembers where he's from, and he's probably like that off ice, regardless of how the day is going or where he is or the championships that he's going to win at the American League level. He's going to go back and do the same thing he does all the time.
And the crazy thing is, he's 7 years older than the previous Texas Stars head coach, Neil Graham, who gets to move up to Dallas for his first NHL assistant job. And when Willie moved to Texas, he went down to get that AHL head coaching after being on the bench with the NHL club, and things went really well. So he's had some great examples of that. I think it's going to be a really good. Sean said there's variables that you can't prepare for, whether it's personnel, circumstances, results, all those things. But you can still be successful with the main avenue, which is development. So, huge pleasure to have Toby join us. And I remember when the press release came out saying he was going to be the one. I hadn't thought about him for a while as being that candidate, but as soon as you did, you go, oh, that's a no-brainer. So really, really fun today. Guys, we're done. Show's over today. But, of course, we have another one tomorrow and Thursday and Friday as we continue through the dog days, although I don't know if Sean will be on the rest of the week.
I will not. Does this mean does Sam have to do a couple solo shows for missing today and yesterday?
Well, he
Just a couple
took
solo
actual
shows?
paid time off, so this wasn't him just disappearing.
Oh, okay.
This was officially I won't be here, not the I'm going to end up in some ER. We didn't have to blanket the hospitals to make sure to canvass and see if he was okay. So
Yet.
Well, that's why I said we don't know for sure if he'll be here tomorrow. We're going to find out. But the plan is side by side in studio with Luds up in Wisconsin. So, all right, for Sean Shapiro, Craig Ludwig, and of course our producer Elijah Smith, and a huge thank you to Toby Petersen for joining us today. I'm Owen Newkirk. Thanks for joining us here on DLLS. We'll be back tomorrow at 2 o'clock Central. Don't go anywhere. Find us then.
We all silly like the mayor.